Hello everyone, Pastor Matthew here. I want to talk to you all today about a new study we'll be doing together. In the same vein as the book of Daniel, which many of you have liked, I want to go over another Old Testament book, one that it might be known to some of you, but might not be known to all of you. Or maybe for those of you who do know, you only know one or two stories from it. It is the book of Judges, one of my personal favorites. The book of Judges is a very interesting book because it is between two different times in Israel's history. You have right before Judges, Israel entering into the Promised Land. There they are safe and secure. This is after they have been wandering in the desert for 40 years after Egypt. Moses, their leader, has died. Joshua, the man who led them into the Promised Land, has now died as well. And now they are living on their own in God's promised place for them. And on the other hand, hundreds of years later, these same people are asking now for a king, someone who will rule over them like everybody else. And that they don't trust God, but they would trust this king. So how do we get to having God on our side and then only wanting a king to tell us what to do? How does that happen? It happens throughout the book of Judges. The book of Judges is smack dab in between 2 points, and because of this, it gives us great insight on the people of Israel as well as the history of the kingdoms surrounding them during these ancient times. The book of Judges has a lot of different themes throughout it, but the one thing that is most prevalent throughout all of it is a streamline of God's continued faithfulness. God continues his faithfulness even when Israel is going up and down, right and left, and all of the other stuff. God continues his faithfulness. This is going to be interesting to see, however, because how God handles his faithfulness, how God shows his faithfulness. So the judges were men and even women who would go and they would judge Israel, meaning that they would save Israel, they would redeem Israel from a captive nation, whether it be the Philistines, the Moabites, the Amorites, the Mesopotamians. There's a lot of also ites in this. Bear with, it's going to get kind of confusing. But God's faithfulness is shown by these people. Now, when you think of God showing his faithfulness, you might think of a very righteous warrior, a devout man who holds truth and justice above all else, the typical white knight. Or maybe you think of a kind and loving teacher, pacifist in every way. That's not who you get in this book. To be sure, there are very good people who are judges. But God, you wouldn't think would use people like a prideful and to the point of arrogance, or seductress, or an assassin, or a mob boss. And yet God uses these types of people. I want to tell you a story today about one of the very first judges. To let you know, before all of this, that there is a bit of repetition in the book of Judges. Judges chapter 2, 11 through 17. I want to read this to you. And the people of Israel did what was evil in the sight of the Lord. They served the Baals. And now this would include the Baals would be the gods of Mesopotamia. We would know them today as Baal himself, the higher god, the kind of guy in charge of everything. Asherah, his wife, who appears many times in the other books of the Old Testament. This would also include gods such as Moloch, another prevalent god in the Old Testament, though for very terrible reasons. But the people of the Lord, people of Israel, served those gods instead of God, Yahweh himself. They abandoned the Lord, the God of their fathers, who had brought them out of the land of Egypt, and went after the other gods from the gods of the peoples who were around them, and bowed down to them. and they provoked the Lord to anger. They abandoned the Lord and served the Baals and the Ashtaroth. And so the anger of the Lord was kindled against Israel, and he gave them over to plunderers who plundered them, and he sold them into the hands of their surrounding enemies, so that they no longer could withstand their enemies. Whenever the people of Israel marched out, the hand of the Lord was against them for harm, as the Lord had warned, and as the Lord had sworn to them, and they were in terrible distress. So essentially, God does everything for the people of Israel, gets them to the promised land, and they say, thanks God, but I want to go after these gods now because they look a lot more fun than you. And God said, well, that's not going to work out for you. I'm just going to have all of these other kingdoms surrounding you take you over. And, well, they were. Of course, Israel would cry out in distress. They would cry out to God, help us, we're being oppressed. God would do this. And the Lord raised up judges who saved them out of the hand of those who plundered them. Okay, so cool. God saves them, right? Awesome, you'd be grateful. Yet they did not listen to their judges, for they whored after other gods and bowed down to them. They soon turned aside from the way in which their fathers had walked to obey the commandments of the Lord, and they did not do so. This is the formula of judges. Israel. Hey, look, other gods. You want to worship them. God, Yahweh. That's not going to work. You get oppressed by everyone around you. Israel. Oh no, God, we're so sorry. Please save us. God says, okay, I'll save you. Here is my righteous Savior, a judge, who will save you and redeem you and bring you back to me. Everyone in Israel rejoices. Yay! Judge dies. Oh, look, other gods. Let's go. They look fun, and the cycle continues. This will continue for a long time. There are both minor judges and major judges, stories that are both very familiar to all of us and those who will be learning about for the first time. And once again, God still is faithful to his people, even when they aren't faithful to him. God's faithfulness shines through. In particular, the first major judge. There was one before him, a very minor man named Othniel, who saved the people of Israel from Mesopotamia. But after him, the people of Israel once again did what was evil in the sight of their Lord. And so God gave them this time into the hands of Eglon, the king of Moab. One of the great kings of all time. If you can imagine a very strong army. Eglon was a mighty man, a strong leader, that he was not only able to get all the Moabites to follow him, but also the Ammonites and the Amalekites. People who were not of his own tribe, he gathered them together in his hand and struck down Israel, capturing them for quite a long time. For the people of Israel served Eglon, the king of Moab, 18 years. Now they cried out in distress to the Lord, and the Lord heard them. And the Lord raised up for them a judge from amongst them, Ehud, the son of Gera, the Benjamite. Okay, cool. But the Bible gives us some interesting details about Ehud. A left-handed man. If you look through much of superstitious culture of many different lands, left-handed people were considered evil, taboo, not worth anything, demonic. This was no different back then. So right here, the first major judge that gets a significant portion of Judges chapter 3 is a guy who many consider evil based upon that he uses his left hand. Okay. He comes from the tribe of Benjamin, the smallest tribe in Israel. So not only do you have the smallest tribe in Israel, the one that is the least important in many different ways for the surrounding people, he was also left-handed, so he's considered evil, taboo, and cursed among his own people. And even then, God still called Ehud. You think this man would rise above, that he'd be the statuesque man, strong, but no, he was not. He was sneaky. He was an assassin. The people of Israel sent a tribute by Ehud to Eglon, the Moab king. Ehud made himself a sword with 2 edges, a cubit in length, and he bound it on his right thigh under his clothes. You can find all of this, by the way, in Judges chapters 3, 12 through 30. So, Ehud makes for himself not really a sword, but a dagger. A power's weapon in many people's eyes. Straps it, it's right in her thigh, hiding it from people. He deceives the king of Moab when he brings tribute to them. So as they were going to tribute, the king met up with them. They were going to their palace, and then, as they were passing by the idols of Gilgal, Ehud said to the king, "I have a secret message for you, O king." And the king had commanded, "Silence." And he sent all of his attendants and went out of his presence. Ehud came to him as he was sitting alone in his cool roof chamber. And Ehud said, "I have a message from God for you." And he arose from his seat. Ehud reached from his left hand and took the sword from his right thigh and thrust it into the belly of Eglon. And the hilt also went up after the blade, and the fat of the blade closed over the blade, for he did not pull the sword out of his belly, and the dung came out. Then Ehud went out into the porch, and closed the doors of the roof chamber behind him, and locked them. So here you have literally an assassination, written down in great detail. Ehud came to the king in his little chamber and said, "Okay, I need everyone to go out. I have something to tell you." Eglon, for whatever reason, decided that he was going to listen to him. We also have to see here, the Bible goes out of its way to tell how fat Eglon was. He was obese, jowly, disgusting, slovenly almost. And so, in a very 1980s fashion hero, Ehud came up and said, "I have a message for you." "And what is it?" "I've got a message from God." He takes a dagger and right into the stomach. And he actually sinks the blade into the Moab king. And the fat literally closes over the blade so you can't even see it. And the king died, and dung came out. And Ehud left, closed the door. Funny enough, when he had gone, the servants came, and when they saw that the doors of the chamber were locked, they thought, well, surely the king must be relieving himself in the closet of the cool chamber. And they waited till they were embarrassed. But when he still did not open the door of the roof chamber, they took the key and opened them, and there lay their lord, dead on the floor. Ehud escaped while they delayed, and he passed behind the idols and escaped to Sirah. And when he arrived, he sounded the trumpet in the hill country of Ephraim. Then the people of Israel went down from the hill country, and he was their leader. Assassin now turns into martial leader and general. He said to them, "Follow after me, for the Lord has given your enemies, the Moabites, into your hands." So they went down after him and seized the fords of the Jordan against the Moabites, the defensive positions, forts, if you will. And they did not allow anyone to pass over. And they killed at that time 10,000 of the Moabites, all strong and able-bodied men. So soldiers, 10,000 of the Moabite army. So Moab was subdued that day under the hand of Israel, and the land had rest for 80 years. The very first judge, Ehud, an assassin, who lied, escaped, and then murdered 10,000 soldiers, if you want to go into that route. And yet God saved him, Israel, through him. A man from the smallest tribe who was judged evil because of his left hand. And yet God still saved Israel through him. God will continue to use very unexpected judges. But God's faithfulness remains, because he does not abandon his people. And as we will see, even if the people abandon God, will forever be faithful to his people. Now may the Lord bless you and keep you. The Lord make his face shine upon you and be gracious to you. The Lord look upon you with his favor and give you all his peace. Amen.